Welcome back to BBN After Dark, another fantastic weekend of baseball, the final weekend of the season for our youth teams, and then our high school teams do have two more weekends. So we are going to get into a little bit of the, entire season in review, but that's going to have its own separate show. But we will get into that a little bit with our youth teams. But first, I just want to talk about this weekend. Bernie and KJ join me once again, and of course, a special guest, Mac Floyd, on the show. Good to hear you again, Mackie, on this one. But let's go ahead and start with 14u Floyd, an undefeated weekend. Actually, because of the rain, played all four of their games on Sunday. They had the first two time slots and then the last two time slots. So a really tough schedule with a long break in between. At the fields at before 8 a.m. and then our championship game ended around 8:30 p.m. So a long day for 14u Floyd, but able to go 4-0 and take home the championship on their last game of the season. And Bernie, I want to go ahead and start with you with this team's offense. It seemed like the usual suspects like Lucas Wilburn, Jack Kester, Lucas Velchek all had big games. But really, for me, Parker Ells was the MVP of this weekend for this team. Seemed like all this guy did was hit hard hit balls all day long. Even his outs were crushed. And obviously, this guy's been an MVP candidate in the past. This season, I say he was closer to star than superstar for the most part, but was a monster this weekend. 3 doubles in 4 games. Bernie, what do you think of Parker Ells in this 14U Floyd offense?
Yeah, for Parker, I made it out for like the championship game, so I saw I believe two of Parker's at bats at the very end of the day, and he had a foul ball that was caught in left field, but it was hit very deep and hit very hard. And then I believe I could be wrong, but I think he scored the go ahead run in the championship on it was a rip single down the right field line. It scored 2 runs, I believe. So it looked really good. The offense as a whole, like Landon Meyer, I know didn't have the best day. Even Jack Kester didn't have the best day, and the offense was still able to put up some big numbers.
Yeah, and I think the key thing for this team all year has been depth, and I would say this team last year was a little bit more top heavy, and it was, basically if the stars did well, the team did well. And I think we've seen several times this year that it doesn't necessarily matter which guys are necessarily performing because there are going to be guys. Another guy who had a very good day was Logan Payne, who went 4 for 5 at the plate with a walk as well. So I think a lot of different guys for this team have really stepped up over the course of the season. And then on the pitching side, KJ, I want to go ahead and go with you for this pitching side. This team had a team ERA of 2.4 on the day. Quinn Steinbeck with another great outing. Mason Geddes had a monster day, 8 Ks, 2 walks, and 5 innings for Mason Geddes, a 0 ERA. And then, of course, you have Veli and Lucas Wilburn, who shut things down as well. KJ, when this team is hitting the way they have been lately, the pitching staff seems like it's just, put this team over the top. What do you think of this team's pitching staff, KJ?
Yeah, again, they have a lot of guys they can go to. Everyone seems like it comes up to bat. Everyone who seems like they get a shot to play a important position on defense. Everyone who gets a shot on the mound, steps up and runs with it. I saw Mason Geddes make his debut on the mound and really impressed, and they started to get more starts. And we've talked about multiple guys in the lineup who have impressed and started to get more starts in the lineup. So it's always a new guy stepping up, and there's still some very good pitchers on that team who haven't really pitched much because of the other guys having so much success.
Yeah, it's been, again, we talk about that depth, and to your point about Mason Geddes, he was not a pitcher for this team at all for the most of the season, and then we end up, having a guy go down to the Bell team, and we needed somebody to step up in that rotation, and Mason Geddes stepped up. It was an open competition. I had 2 games on a Saturday that I decided I was going to throw Mason and a couple other guys to kind of find out who our fourth starter was going to be. And it was an open competition. It was not Mason's job at all. And he went out there and absolutely dominated. I don't think we lost a game that Mason started on the mound since he took over in the rotation. So he was a beast for us, a huge part of this rotation and a big part of this championship game run. And then, of course, the defense was shut down. Only 1 error in 4 games on the day. And this team, I think that has kind of been the bread and butter for this team all season long, has been the defense. And this team just continues to not only make all the routine plays, but also make some big plays. I know we had several outfield assists today. or yesterday in the games. We had several outfield assists that ended up cutting down runners that should have been on base, and just stuff like that has been a big reason for this team that even when one of those three aspects of the game isn't clicking, the other two seem to just carry this team to win. So very, very impressive day and season for this 14 Floyd team. Let's go ahead and move on to 11U Floyd. And Mackie, we have you here to really talk about this team. A great weekend for the boys, 3-1, ended up taking home the championship on Sunday. And Mac, for this team, obviously, I think it's been, an up and down season for this squad as you guys still start to kind of find your legs as a team. But what was it about this weekend that really clicked for the boys and a great championship win for you guys?
Yeah, you could certainly tell that they were going out there trying to crush the ball. We had multiple guys smoking the ball, hitting it so hard that the fielders couldn't even field it. We had plenty that we hit right at the fielders, and it's just smoking off their gloves because we're hitting them so hard. And then, the pitching was stand out. We're throwing strikes, and we're throwing the ball right where we need to put it. And the teams are, when they're hitting them, we're making plays on defense, and when they're not hitting them, they're striking out. So, everything was clicking this weekend, and it seemed like a very good weekend for us.
Yeah, and I would say, Mac, the biggest thing for this team was the defense because I feel like this team all season, for the most part, has been able to hit. I feel like for the most part, we've been pretty good at throwing strikes, but the defense was the thing that really impressed me this weekend. Only 2 errors for the team in 4 games. For an 11U team, very, very impressive. And of those errors, none of them came by outfielders, and there was only one by one of your second baseman, shortstops, or third baseman. So a lot of ground balls were getting fielded, and this pitching staff, well, they were pretty good over the course of the weekend. It felt like the defense really for me was the turning point. So, Mac, what do you think about this team's defense and how they've come over the course of the fall?
You can certainly tell that there's been an improvement there. You could tell when we started the season, if there was a ball hit in the infield, all right, just let him get the first. We'll get the next guy. But, he's gone hard in practice and hit the balls hard at him, made them work, and they've definitely seemed to improve there.
Yeah, and that was the big part for me. I want to go ahead and shift gears here to KJ. KJ, this team seems like a lot of different guys stepping up. We've talked about Matthew Hume a lot, Carson Griffith as well, but I want to talk about 2 guys who haven't necessarily gotten a lot of love on BBN, starting with Ryder Brody, who new to the team, the newest member to the squad, had a great weekend. In fact, didn't get out on the weekend. He was 6 for 6 at the plate with a couple of walks as well. And then Landon Hines, who's a guy who is probably toward the back end of this team. I thought he had a great weekend as well, going 500, including some big RBIs on the weekend. Bernie or KJ, what do you think of these 2 guys, Ryder Brody and Landon Hines, and their kind of role fitting onto the team?
Yeah, you got to have guys like Landon Hines who, aren't necessarily your superstar caliber players, but he's a guy who will come up for you and give you a good at bat whenever you need it. And he does have some sneaky power. I've seen him hit a couple balls over some outfielders' heads. But going to Ryder Brody, this is a guy who looks, he is going to be a superstar. He looks the part of a superstar. If you watch him out there, he just looks like he's more mature than the other guys. He's locked into the game. He's serious. He's locked in. And so this guy's going to be very good, and I'm excited for how he's going to develop in the Bears.
Yeah, me too. I think this is a guy who instantly becomes a big contributor for this team, which is not all the time what you can say for rookies. And I think this 11 Floyd team, later in the show, we're going to kind of talk about the season as a whole. I think you got to love the rookie talent for this team. Owen Haynes, Carson Griffith, and now, of course, Ryan Brody, as well as some other guys who have really come in and made this team very, very effective. And Bernie, I want to go ahead and move on to you for the pitching staff. This team, really, really effective all weekend long. And I'll tell you what, a guy that we've talked about, at least career, we've talked about this guy a lot in his career, was Whedon Hainline, who had 8 Ks to just 3 walks in 4 innings this weekend. Whedon has been a long-time precision pitching guy. Was great to see him put it all together this weekend and put together some really nice numbers for the team. And then Carson Griffith, who continues to just be dominant. Another 0 walk outing for him. And at 11U, that's just so huge. Owen Haynes as well pitched this weekend. Ryder Brody, Owen Dobrinsky. Everybody threw pretty well. Bernie, give me your thoughts on this pitching staff.
Yeah, Whedon, Whedon's one of my favorite guys in that squad. I think early in the year, Whedon was just up there, just kind of lob the ball over the plate. He was up there just kind of throwing strikes. And that's something we talked about a lot in precision was just have the confidence go up there and just let it rip. Right? You'll throw enough strikes. Let's let it rip, right? And it seems like as the season's gone on, he's gotten more and more confident. His strike numbers started go up, especially in recent time. Then you get Owen Dobrinsky, another good outing. Owen Haynes, I think it could be a legit ace in the future. A guy that already kind of throws hard and throws strikes and has a changeup, right? Kind of a two-pitch mix at 11U. But yeah, and pitcher staff looks like it has a bright future.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to kind of talk about the long-term aspects of this squad. So very, very good weekend for the boys. Let's go ahead and move right along here to another team that had a very good weekend in 13U Floyd. A 3-1 weekend for the guys on 13U Floyd, I believe. No, 4-1 weekend. I'm sorry, 4-1 weekend. Lost in the championship game, but a very nice weekend for this team. And KJ, we continue to talk about this team really finding guys to step up. Diego Buchos had a monster fall, MVP caliber fall. Nifri Kabarkis has been a beast all fall long. And this weekend, it felt like we got a couple more guys stepping up. The big one that I want to talk about first, Avery McNicholas with a 9 for 11 weekend at the plate, and it wasn't like he was up there hitting singles, 3 doubles and a triple, 9 RBIs at the plate as well. KJ, this is a guy we've talked about a lot, and I would say maybe not you, but more so me and to a lesser extent Byrne have talked about this guy more as a role player, a guy who's going to play good defense, hit toward the bottom of the order, and take good enough at bats. But this weekend, he looked like he could be a big part of this offense. Give me your thoughts on Avery McNicholas's weekend.
Yeah, I think Avery, when he came to the team, he's afraid to fail, and lately he's totally embraced, batting in the middle of the order, and I've kind of driven into Avery's head before his at bats. I tell him, you either go up there and hit a bomb or strike out trying to, no ground balls, no weak pop ups. I don't want you to go up there and walk. I want you to go up there with the intent to crush it. And if you don't, strike out swinging hard. And he's really embraced that. And to my surprise, taking that approach, his strikeouts have dropped and his extra base hits have gone up. So he's going up there with that intent, and he's just crushing the ball right now. And he's definitely a guy. When you got the big four, Easy Garcia, Garrett Knight, Diego, and Nifri, Avery's a perfect 5 hitter to slide in there.
Yeah, and this is a guy who, at least for me, I didn't necessarily think of him as a big-time star for this team. I thought he was more going to be a role player, but certainly was a monster this weekend. And it's just going to be really exciting going into the offseason. It's really interesting with this team because you kind of want to say that they're a little bit top heavy, but it feels like when you look at the names throughout the lineup, there's a ton of big names on this team that it feels like any of them could go off at any given time, that there's potential for this team to be a really, really deep lineup in the Bears. So really, really impressive stuff. The next guy I want to go ahead and talk about was Caden Inman, who came off really, really slow to begin the fall, but recently he's been hitting really, really well. And he was a guy who, for me specifically, I thought he was a guy who needed to step up for this team to really take it to the next step. What do you think of Caden Inman's weekend this weekend, KJ?
Yeah. Caden's problem has always been, he goes up there and sometimes he'll just try to make contact, and that's always been his issue. So this weekend again, we're getting him swinging harder. He's still doing it sometimes. He hasn't got fully consistent with it, but we've been working on having a lot of intent in his swings, and he's starting to do it more. And he hit a couple balls this weekend that were very, very far.
Yeah, a great weekend for him. And then, of course, ZZ, Diego, they had monster weekends. Nifri Kabarkis wasn't necessarily as dominant as he's been, but he was still very good. Garrett Knight had some hard hit balls that got caught. I thought this was a great weekend for this team. And let's go ahead and move on to the pitching staff. Byrne, got a lot of precision pitching guys here on this list, and I want to go ahead and start with the guy who's kind of been, again, the underdog for the staff, a guy that we weren't sure was going to pitch very much. Avery McNicholas had a great weekend at the plate, had a great weekend on the mound, 7 Ks to just 1 walk in 5 innings. This guy, I thought, I even told KJ, KJ was kind of asking me for updates about, okay, how's Avery been looking in pitching? This is his first real time trying to learn how to be a real pitcher. And I said, I think he'll be a strike pumper for you. I think he'll go up there. He's not going to walk a lot of guys, and he'll just kind of put the ball over the plate. He was a lot more than that this weekend. He was throwing hard off the mound. He was throwing off speed. A very nice weekend for him as he continues to get better. Byrne, give me your thoughts on Avery McNicholas as a pitcher and what you think his upside kind of is.
Yeah, I talk about a lot how some guys have like the right mentality at certain things, and I think Avery's just another one of those guys that I think when he's in precision, right, he's locked in, he's focused because he wants to become a better pitcher, right? He is hyper focused in there. And seeing him go for basically a guy who never threw before on the mound to be a strike thrower and now to gain some Ks, right? Right on the strikeouts a little bit. It's been great to see. I think that definitely, he could be a mainstay for that rotation come next spring, especially if that guy stays in pitching all winter. I mean, like I said, the growth in just a short amount of time. You get him here for a full offseason with the same focus he has and the same mentality he has. I think he could slide into that rotation for 13U.
Yeah, very, very encouraging stuff to see. And then the next guy I want to talk about is ZZ Garcia. ZZ pitched both days. On Saturday, he had a solid outing. Wasn't necessarily anything to write home about. I think, like 2 1/3, 1 earned run, 5 Ks, but also had, some walks as well. And then on Sunday, he comes out and absolutely shoves 7 Ks, no walks in 3 innings, 0 earned runs, and only allowed 1 hit. A absolutely ace caliber outing for ZZ that he's been a little bit inconsistent, but great to see him end his season off with an outing like that. Bernie, what'd you think of this ZZ Garcia outing, and what do you think about him going forward as a pitcher?
Yeah, you want to talk about a high ceiling pitcher? ZZ's the guy. I mean, I think his record in pitching 72, so he throws extremely hard for the age. Has a good off speed pitch. It's just a matter of can this guy consistently throw strikes? And for one outing, he did this weekend. For one outing, he did. So you see the flashes, you see the upside there that we saw on Sunday. I think if he continues to work at it again, that but come next spring, we could see more of those Sunday outings than the Saturday outing we saw.
Yeah, it was a dominant outing for this guy. Very, very impressive stuff. Um, Cam Bernstein had not necessarily as good an outing as he's been having, but still a very, very solid outing for him. Caden Inman was very good in his outings this weekend as well. He pitched in 3 different games and was good in all 3 of them. And then defensively, this team, had a lot of guys on the field that are a little bit inexperienced, but I thought for the most part this team played very good defense as well all weekend long. A great weekend to end off. I know it kind of a sour note with losing the championship game, but a 4-1 weekend. I mean, if you do that every weekend, you're ending up with an 800 winning percentage on the season, and that would be one of the best in the entire organization. So, very, very encouraging weekend for the boys. And let's go ahead and move on to another team that had a very nice weekend until they lost in double California rules in the championship, an absolute heartbreaker of a loss for 14u Floyd, but a great weekend overall in GMB. I thought this team came to play all weekend, and they should have won that championship game on Sunday. Got a little bit unlucky. I was actually watching the game on video, and there was a ball that the other team overthrew, and if it would have gone into the dugout, the game would have been over, and we would have won. But it hit the absolute edge of the pole of the dugout and then kept in play, and it was just a little bit of an unlucky bounce. This team had a lot of chances they could have won that championship game, but overall, a very, very good weekend for this team. And it was a weekend that they didn't necessarily hit like they normally do. But the pitching staff was great, a 2.5 team ERA. I thought this team was able to win some unfavorable situations this weekend. Very, very impressive stuff. And Mac, I want to go ahead and start with you on a couple of guys for this team, starting with Weston Brody, who just continues to be one of the top dogs for this squad. A guy that we thought was going to be a role player, continues to be a very good player for them. The second highest OPS on the team this weekend. He hit 400 with a double. Mac, what do you think about Weston Brody in the fall season he's had?
Yeah, it seems like Weston Brody just jumped on the scene. I mean, no one really talked about him. I hadn't really heard his name, and then this fall we're talking about him as an MVP candidate. So it's awesome to see him come out. He's using his training that he's got, and he's going out there. He's hitting the ball hard. He's playing good defense. And I mean, I was talking to Ben Combs today, and I was like, "Who's some of the best players on our team?" And Weston Brody was one of the first guys he named. So to see what this guy's been doing, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, completely took his game to another level. And KJ, I think we got to give you credit for that one. You were all over Weston preseason, and he's had a great year. But I do want to go ahead with a different guy on this team that is kind of coming up under the radar. The guy who had the highest OPS on the team this weekend was Gunnar Wilson. And KJ, this is a guy who we all have liked his work ethic and how much work he's been putting in since he joined. But a very good weekend, led the team in doubles, OPS, had a 500 batting average, which led the team as well. This guy definitely still a role player right now, but I think we're starting to see that there's star potential inside of him. What do you think of this Gunnar Wilson weekend, KJ? And what do you think about the entire season he's had?
Yeah, Gunner's a guy who just got back in free swing this past month, and he's seen
his stats shoot up in the past couple weeks, and he's a guy who's there on Fridays with me, and I've really challenged him to hit the ball harder and pull the ball more and use some of that power he's gotten. He's seeing better results in free swing, and obviously he's taking that same approach into the game.
Yeah, great to see from this guy. I think a lot of potential for him going forward, especially with the work ethic he has. I think he's going to dive into the gym this winter, and that I think is going to be a real game changer for him. And KJ, another guy who's been playing really well recently is Wyatt Poore, who's been slot into the 3-hole for this team. Had another very nice weekend, hit 364 with an 825 OPS. I thought this guy, I was surprised to see where he's been hitting in the lineup recently, but definitely the production has been there. KJ, what do you think about Wyatt Poore in the last couple weeks he's had?
Yeah, you talk about a guy who gets the most out of his body. I mean, if you've seen Wyatt Poore, he doesn't look like he'd be a 3-hitter on one of the most premier teams at the age in the state. But he is. He's got that kind of playing ability, and he finished off his season in a huge way. And with the BWL season now approaching, I mean, Wyatt Poore's stock has absolutely skyrocketed.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see where he goes in that draft as well. Bernie, I want to go ahead and shift notes here to the pitching staff. This team, I thought this was the strength of their team all weekend long. Andrew Driscoll, 2.1 ERA, Logan Eckert, 1.4, Noah Hendricks, 1.5, Braden King, 3.5, a team ERA of 2.5. I thought it was a great weekend for this team on the pitching staff. And I will say, if you look at the strikeouts and walks numbers, this team had a little bit more walks than they normally have, but I think the ERAs tell you that they were able to pitch out of a lot of jams. Bernie, what do you think about this pitching staff? Obviously, we've talked about a lot of these names, but this pitching staff as a whole, both this weekend and also the course of the fall.
Yeah, I mean this whole pitching staff. I mean, not to sound mean here, but there's not any big superstars as far as pitching goes. Like there's no Lucas Velchek, there's no Z's, like there's no guys who go out there and just gonna blow pitches by you. But they got a lot of guys on this mountain that will just go out there and they'll just get outs. I mean, Andrew Driscoll, week in and week out, I don't know how he does it. He goes deep into every game and allows almost no runs. Same thing with Willeret. Again, another guy doesn't throw hard, but just goes up there and goes deep into games. Noah Hendricks is new to that staff. Has been doing the same kind of thing. Even Logan Eckert, who I think is widely considered their ace, is not another guy who's going to go up there and blow you away. He's going to go out there. He's going to throw off speed for strikes. He's not going to get a ton of strikeouts. He'll get his fair share, but not a ton. And he's going to give you 5-6 innings every single time he goes out there.
Yeah, this is a team that has been able to put together a pitching staff from basically blank. Logan Eckert was not necessarily a big-time pitcher when he joined. Andrew Willeret didn't really pitch much at all, when he joined. Braden King, obviously a second-year player new into the organization. Noah Hendricks, a rookie who's kind of come up from nowhere. And then, of course, Andrew Driscoll, who has always been a pitcher but never quite been a GMB championship game caliber pitcher until this year. So I think it's been very impressive to see what this team's been able to do over the course of this season. Let's go ahead and move on to 14u Floyd, a 2-1 weekend for this team. Again, I thought we've gone back to seeing this team just consistently play well and figure out how to win games. I think the star power isn't necessarily there like it has been in the past, but this team just continues to figure out how to win games. And I think the big part has been they've just been out hitting everybody. And I think several guys have stepped up in the pitching department, like Reese Payne, who started to pitch really well recently, Brady Heck, who's gotten back into the swing of pitching, and then defensively, I think this team has just figured out how to win games. And Mac, I want to go ahead and start with you. Obviously, you and Brendan have really been carrying this offense, but I thought recently we've seen guys like Elliott, like Clayton Kaira, who had a monster weekend, even Reese Payne and Fred Smith, who've really stepped up. Mac, what can you tell me about the depth of this offense and, in your opinion, how this team has really hit as of late?
Yeah, I mean, me and Brennan can only hold up 2 of the spots in the order, but on the other parts, we're having some great offense from the rest of our team. And me and Brennan get on, and we know we're going to get driven in by the guys behind us. I mean, we have Fred out there, we have Elliott, and you can always trust those guys to do their job and put the ball where they need to put it to win us games.
Yeah, and then Bernie on the pitching side for this team. I do want to talk about the two guys I kind of mentioned, Reese Payne and Brady Heck, who this weekend both a sub-3 ERA, and kind of like you mentioned, Bernie, with the 15U guys, these are not two pitchers that are going to blow you away, but they're two guys who do their job and give the team a chance to win. Bernie, what'd you think of the weekend from Reese Payne and Brady Heck?
Yeah, I know toward or really the theme of the whole fall for 18U. I was at one of the 18U games. And I forgot who said it. I think it was Brennan. Was like, man, I mean, our biggest struggle right now is we can't throw strikes. I know Reese Payne struggled at times at the start of the fall, but he's got back in. He's been locked. He's been locked in lately. Brady Heck, who was hurt all summer as far as pitching goes, has gotten back into it. And then I know Max been going up there. Max been dealing for them almost every weekend. So the pitching staff seems like it's finally starting to lock back in and throw strikes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, Bernie, that this offense and defense are so good that as long as they're not losing games for the team, the offense can carry it, as long as they're not putting a lot of guys free bases. So I think the huge thing is just throwing strikes for this squad. And, I think Reese Payne kind of went through a bit of a struggle doing that in the middle of the season. Obviously, other guys, like, Andrew Smith and even Elliott at times have struggled to find the strike zone. Recently, I think that's been a big emphasis for this team, and I think they've taken a big step in the right direction in that department to really go ahead and bear down and throw strikes. Of the 5 guys who pitched this weekend, 3 of them had 0 walks, which I think is a huge step in the right direction for this pitching staff as they kind of go through the rest of the season. I did want to go ahead and talk about one more team before we kind of break things down on a youth full season standpoint. And I want to talk about 16U Byrne, who came out just like 14U, got rained out Saturday, so they had to play 3 games on Sunday back to back to back, but ended up going to the championship game and losing in the championship. But I thought getting there, this team showed a lot of fight. And Bernie, I know you were at least some of their games this weekend. What'd you think of the 16U Byrne squad? A team obviously that I think it's had a solid fall season. They're around 500, so I think you got to be happy with what JT and this team have been doing from a developmental team standpoint. But who are the big stars for this team, Bernie? And what do you think of this team's weekend?
Yeah, another good weekend for the 16U Burn squad. After the because I was at the championship game, so I was at the end of the day for him, and I told JT what a great job he was doing with that squad. I mean, I was really impressed with how JT was coaching, even his post game speech to his boys. I was really impressed with JT. But like he was talking about some guys like Sam Downs, who's I know he's had a great fall, pitching and hitting. JT, raves about this kid because he said there's one guy I can count on every single time I show up to the field that's gonna give me 150%. It's Sam Downs. Cole Miller is a rookie this fall. He's a legit superstar. I think you could see him on Dalton in the very very near future. And a couple other guys, Ethan Mon has had a good offensive fall. Same with Anthony Young. Anthony Young's been here for a while. Been a free swing student. Just came up from the bottom. And I believe Anthony Young batted 4 this weekend. He's had a good fall overall. Um, and yeah, that's some other guys here like Kahlberg. Been here for a little bit now. Been working really hard. He has as good work ethic as anybody. Um, is a very good defensive catcher for them. And yeah, that's all I got to say about 16U.
Yeah, and I think this 60 Burn squad kind of has the same team dynamic as the Driscoll squad at 15U, where you have some veterans who've been here a long time mixed in with some exciting rookies. And I think that kind of dynamic is really what makes our developmental teams find success, is you have these guys who come in hungry mixed with guys who know the Bear way, and then you put it together with a coach who is passionate about the team. And I think we're seeing that with Driscoll, and we're seeing that with 6U Burn now, where these guys are starting to put us some good results. And listen, there's no pressure to win with Driscoll and with Byrne and with all our developmental teams. We say, I don't care how much you win. I want you to develop guys. And I think where JT and Jeff have done such a good job is they've been able to do both, at the same time. And I think JT, I don't know if he's necessarily started to see the fruits of his labor in terms of guys moving up to Dalton yet, but I think over the course of this offseason, you're going to see Ike give some guys shots on the team next summer. And I think JT is doing a really good job, and we're going to see how that translates into them finding success on their top teams. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through each of our youth ages very quickly here. Spend about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes on each age and kind of get a little bit of a season in review standpoint for each age. Starting with 11U, and obviously Mac, we have you here, and this team, I think this year was all about kind of finding an identity, and I don't know that there was necessarily a lot of pressure to win, at least from the outside. I mean, I'm sure you, Mac, had felt pressure to win right now, but I think from an organizational standpoint, I think this was a let's see what we got year and then go into the offseason. And then next year is kind of when the big expectations start. So, Mac, what do you think about this 11U Floyd season? You're obviously your first year with the team, and give me your thoughts on the season as a whole for 11U. Mackie?
Yeah,
Oh, there he
yeah,
is. Sorry.
yeah. We went into the season. Obviously, I had pretty high expectations. Didn't know what to expect, but we went out there. We had a lot of fun, and I could definitely see what we needed to work on, and we put it to work. I mean, we came into the season with not hitting very well, not fielding very well, not pitching very well. Figured that out. Went into practice, worked hard, got harder every practice, and you could definitely see the improvements there. And so now that we're going into the off season, we see what we need to work on. We're just going to get better at pitching, better fielding, better hitting, come out a much better team in the summer or in the spring.
Yeah, very excited to see the work this team's going to put in over the offseason. And KJ, for you, kind of from an outsider's perspective, when you're looking at this offense, is there one guy or maybe a couple guys that you could see taking big steps forward over the course of the winter, just based on maybe size, work ethic, guys who kind of got some unfound potential? Who are some guys for this age on the offensive side that you could really see taking a big step forward?
I think at that age, it's tough to find kids who are super serious about this and super serious about working hard in the off season. Every kid wants to just go out there and play the games, but it's very rare to find 11-year-olds who are ready to work. But I think there's two that come to mind for me. I know Owen Haynes, is really going to attack this off season. Since he's been here, all this kid does is work, and he takes it very seriously. When we have younger kids in free swing, some of them come in and kind of mess around. Owen Haynes is all business when he's in free swing. He's there to work, and and that goes into my next guy. Same thing with Lucas Closter. He's another guy who's always willing to work. I've seen him at Bud Dome more and more as the season went on, and another guy who takes baseball really seriously, and I think he's going to take another big jump.
Yeah, and this is a guy, Byrne, I was actually going to ask you about this guy, Lucas Closter, who I think when you're looking at potential, you kind of when you're all you're looking at is what could this guy be, you kind of remove all the bad stuff and just look at the positives. And when you remove all the bad stuff, Lucas Closter, I think, has the potential to be the best player at this age and potentially an MVP candidate. Obviously, a ton of raw power, very, very athletic, great arm. I think when you look at the tools this guy has, if he can put it all together, I think you're looking at an MVP caliber talent. Bernie, what do you think about Lucas Closter and the season he just had, and also the potential for this guy moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about the top of the line ceiling for this kid. He could definitely be like his head coach Matt Floyd in the future. But for the kind of player Lucas Closter is, again, I made this comparison before on BBN. I've dug, I think, to another player, but he could be a Gold Glove caliber version of Gavin Degnan. Old Bears player, was a legit superstar here. Plays in MoBAP, I believe, still to this day. Just this pure raw power, athleticism, the great arm, all those things Deggy had as well. And then Lucas adds into it now with, I think he's one of the best youth center fielders for the age appropriate wise, that we have here.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about that comparison, Bernie, is that Lucas is probably or definitely way more talented than Deggy was when he first got here. And I think the big thing for me for him to reach that comparison is going to be the work ethic, because Deggy, his work ethic was second to none. And if Lucas takes that kind of work ethic with the talent and plus starting a lot younger than Deggy did, I think that's where you see the generational type MVP caliber player that Lucas Closter could be. Let's go ahead and move on to 12U in the Burnsville squad. Bernie, I know at least for me, the expectation for this team, or at least the goal for this team, was 500. And we absolutely met that goal with this roster and a team that definitely went through some adversity all season long. It felt like we were trying to find the core for this team all season and find some guys around Harrison Blabaum to really build a team. And I think, at least for me, Bernie, I'm super excited going into this offseason because it feels like we've found the core and now it's just about going to work. It's not really a lot of searching, for guys anymore. We know who the guys are. It's just about going to work. So for me, I'm very excited to see this team. But Bernie, for you, kind of a season in perspective, what do you think about this age and the steps this team took this year?
Yeah, I mean, going into the year, I think there was a ton of question marks with the squad. I mean, from batting order to pitching staff, from defense, even. I mean, all three phases I thought we had massive question marks. Just to see the mindset flip throughout the year. I think a lot are like last fall and even toward the start of the spring. I was game planning at least. How are we going to win a game this weekend? Right? What pitching matchup can I make to win a game? And when we won that game, we acted like it was Game 7 of the World Series sometimes at the start of the year. We just won one game. We didn't win. We won one game, and we're storming the field. And it's been great to see now as we get into the fall, going against even better teams. We come into every game expecting to win. The team, myself, everyone expects to win every game. I thought something that was impressive that not going to show up on our record is all fall we did not play a single bottom bracket in any tournament. GMB or Game Time, we never played in a bottom bracket, which I think speaks to the level of competitiveness our team has. A lot of our boys have. Our boys want to compete against the best. It's been a big thing for me. We want to compete against the best teams. We don't want to play bad teams. Like, we're not in the business of blowing out teams. We want to come out and play the best teams and give them a great game. I think we did that a lot of this fall. We beat some teams this fall that in the past had beat us by a decent amount. This past weekend we beat a team 9-2 that I think we played 5 times over the past year, and they've blown us out every time. And I thought we were the better team all game, and I think we are the better team. But going into the winter, we got a lot of guys here, man. Harris Blabaum obviously started off. Bear superstar. Cale Taylor turned into a superstar over the course of the fall. I can't wait to see where he goes. Owen Lewis, same thing. And some of these rookies, man. We had 4 rookies on my team this fall, and all 4 of them I love. Hunter Finley this weekend made a play in center field that my team has never seen made. He wouldn't got a ball over his head in the gap, in the right center gap, that my team has never seen made before. Connor Kennedy takes a lot of good at bats, and then Trey and Rudy, the ceiling's the roof for both these guys. Rudy put 3 or 4 balls in the past couple weeks. Either one hop the fence or hit the wall. And on Sunday, he hit a ball that short hop the center of the fence, and then he flew out to right. But the reason he flew out to right is because the right fielder was playing back against the wall. And Trey, same thing. Trey ceilings through the roof. So I'm ready to get in this. Ready to get in the winter. The boys are motivated. I think all my starters here are ready to go, and I think everyone's going to work hard this offseason.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part for me, Bernie, is that the guys, the team is here. The team's already here, and it's just about kind of growing as a squad. And I think when you go into the offseason without questions, and it's just okay, we know exactly, kind of like what Mac was saying. We know what we have to do to get to that next level. I think, Bernie, like you said, not playing in a single bottom bracket. Something that Rob always likes to say is you got to win on Saturday before you win on Sunday. And this team, I think, was the definition of that this season. Was very, very good all year on Saturdays. And because they were so good, they were always in the toughest bracket on Sunday, and sometimes had some early exits because of that. But I think that dominance that we showed on Saturday, that translates to Sunday. I think it's very in tune with my 14U squad. That's where we started back when we were 12U. I think we went on a run like we were 19-1 on Saturdays. We're 10 weekends in a row. We were 19-1 on Saturdays, and it didn't necessarily turn into tournament wins at the beginning. So I think you're in a very similar spot to my team when we were in that 11-12U kind of season. So I think the sky's the limit for this entire squad, and you got the superstars with Harrison, Cale Taylor, Owen Lewis, and then you found the rest of the squad with future stars like Rudy, like Trey, Hunter Finley, who looks like he's going to be a big role player for this team, Connor Kennedy as well. I think it's really, really going to be exciting to see this team grow over the offseason. KJ, I want to go ahead and go with you on this question. Obviously, Harrison, I think, has MVP caliber potential. He's already an MVP candidate, right? He is arguably one of the best players in the entire Bears organization. For you, KJ, when you look at Owen Lewis, Cale Taylor, Trey Vonderhyde, and Rudy, with those 4 guys, which of them do you think has the highest potential in terms of being that guy right next to Harrison?
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with Rudy. This is a guy who's already got that big, powerful lefty swing. I got a chance to watch a couple of Rudy's at bats, and I saw him have that deep flyout Bernie was talking about. When he came up, they were all shouting, "Back up, back up, back up!" And I mean, they were deep, and his swing just looks so easy, man, but yet so powerful. And this guy is a guy who's again at such a young age willing to put in the work. So he's going to have to be my pick, and I think he's going to have a big BWL season and a big offseason altogether.
Yeah, very excited for this guy going forward. I know this is a guy that we've all liked since he joined, so very, very excited for Rudy Montenegro Langley. Moving on to 13U, this team, a very good year, well over 500 for the course of the season, and it felt like this team, again, kind of like Byrne, still faced a lot of adversity over the course of the year. Obviously, the story for this team was came out super, super hot in April and May, and then kind of cooled off in the middle of the season, went through a little bit of a rough patch, and then ended the season very, very strong toward the end. So I think for me, at least, KJ, something to build off of was the end of the season, because it seemed like this team, again, kind of like with Byrne still, is finding their guys, and you know what you got going into the offseason. But I think kind of unlike the 11 and 12U ages, you've got some really interesting rookies that maybe are a little bit raw and a little bit, question marks that you could see really push some starters' jobs over the course of the offseason. So, KJ, I want to go ahead and start first with just your thoughts overall on the season, and then I do want to talk about some of these rookies. But let's go ahead and start with KJ, just your thoughts on the season as a whole.
Yeah, again, we hit the big win record last year of getting to 50 wins and all the glory that came with that. But, coming into this year, I think, like Bernie said, the goal was to just, play the best baseball possible. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any team in the entire Bears played up more weekends than we did into an older bracket. We were always moving up. Like Bernie said, we take pride in never being in a bottom bracket, never requesting to play lower teams. We were always playing the best teams possible. I didn't give them any easy rides. We never just came out and I gave them an easy weekend where we could just blow out everyone. I always made them play the toughest baseball. So definitely towards the end there, we played some really good baseball against some really good teams. And, at the end of the day, how the season went, man, we lost to some teams we definitely shouldn't have lost to. But again, we beat some teams we definitely shouldn't have beat. And I think, after this off season, I don't think, like Mac and Bernie kind of touched on, I don't think we have to bring anyone else in. We have the guys I want here. I have a strong core. I think I have a deep lineup, and I think over the offseason we're going to become one of the best teams in the Bears again. And those teams that I said we shouldn't have beat are going to be teams that we should beat by 10.
Yeah, 100% KJ. I think that you're looking at a team that a lot of guys who were high up on our prospects list, they're stars now. Obviously ZZ Garcia was a former #1 overall prospect. Nifri Kabarkis, former #1 overall prospect. Diego was top 5. Garrett Knight was top 5. And then some other guys as well who showed up on our prospects list. Obviously Josh Collier, we didn't necessarily have a formal prospect list when he was coming up, but he was a big time prospect. So you're seeing kind of these guys who had super high potentials when they joined. They're the stars now, and I think it's been a great process to see. But I do want to touch on some of these guys, some of these brand new players like Carson Warner, like Jacob Lowry, and a couple other guys as well who I'm not sure people really know yet. But I think for me, at least, I'm really excited to see if these guys can maybe push some of the top team guys and take some jobs and earn some at-bats going into next season. So, KJ, specifically with Lowry and Warner, and then anybody else that you want to talk about, where do you see them this offseason? Do you see path for them to kind of break into the roster? What do you think about Lowry and Warner, and then any other rookie you want to talk about?
Yeah. Here's two guys who came in and they're not very talented players. And their first couple weeks of practice, man, they had some brutally not good practices. They just couldn't hang. And I think, as the winter went on, I can say this, Carson Warner was a guy who, man, as the winter went on, he definitely started working. He took his work ethic to a whole nother level. And Jacob Lowry, again, did that same thing. They're both in multiple programs. I see them both multiple times a week. And, Kreitler didn't play Sunday, so I invited them two out. Didn't guarantee him any playing time, just brought him out. And, Jacob Lowry did get in that bat. They both got in at bats, and Jacob Lowry's bat, he got an RBI single. Carson Warner put up a good at bat and ended up pinch running a bunch for me. And I know he came in to score as well. So both of them, they looked the part on the top team on Sunday. And I think they both are going to compete for jobs. And I think coming up to the top team, you get that taste of, varsity baseball, what that feels like, what the environment is, how the players are like. And I think, getting that taste of it is going to make them work even harder this offseason.
Yeah, very, very excited to see this age as it develops into the offseason. And Bernie, real quick, I want to go ahead and throw this one over to you. When you look at this team, Bernie, and the pieces that they have between Garrett Knight, Diego Buccio, ZZ Garcia, and Naifri Kabarkis, if let's just say those four kind of hit their ceiling, where do you think that core four ranks among the rest of the Bear top lineups? I mean, because to me, I'm kind of going through each age, and it's like, I'm not sure that if those four specifically all are at their best at any given time, I'm not sure how many top fours are better than that, over the course of the Bears. So, Bernie, give me your thoughts on those top four hitters for this team.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through all the age in my head here real quick. If those four reach their stride, maybe you could say 15u Floyd has a competitive four with those guys. With Ben Combs, Land Nickerson, Brody now, and I'm trying to think of who else. Maybe like Adam Saxon added to that. Willerette. I can't believe I missed Willerette. But those four, I think, could compete with KJ's four. But if those four hit their stride, man, this team is going to be right in the running for best team in the Bears. I mean, ZZ has been an MVP candidate. Diego showed he was this fall. Naifri has definitely the potential to be an MVP candidate. And Garrett Knight, I mean, how far this guy's come in a year. You give this guy another offseason, he could turn into another guy like Diego, who next spring he just explodes into an MVP candidate.
Yeah, and then an extremely high potential pitching staff as well with Cam and ZZ, Avery, Caden Inman, and Josh Collier. I mean, that's a very core five. And I feel like once you get into like next year, they're going to be 13, 14U. I feel like once you get into that age, you can kind of get away with only having five pitchers. The younger you are, the more arms you need. But once you get into that age, it's like, okay, we're going to be throwing a lot of complete games. Our guys are a little bit more efficient when pound the strike zone. So I think even though I'm not sure how deep the pitching staff is going to be next year, I think there's five guys you can count on there that are going to be able to give your team a chance to win every single game. And then with ZZ and Cam specifically, I think they have the potential to dominate and win you some games on the mound. So very, very excited for this team's future. And let's go ahead and move on to 14U Floyd. This team, a very great year. Technically won fewer games than last year, but had a better winning percentage than last year. Obviously, that having to do with the rainouts. If this team would have had one more weekend, they would have had 60 wins again, and they would have been the first team in Bear history to win 60 games back-to-back years. But 58-21, certainly a very good season. And I really think, unlike last year, last year, this team, it felt like, was dominant all year long. This year, despite the record, it felt like this team faced a lot of inconsistencies, and we won ugly a lot more than we were just blowing teams out. And I thought it was a very impressive year mentally, the mental toughness this team showed, the grit this team showed. I thought we had a lot of comeback wins, and I think the biggest part was our first inning. And I think last year one of our biggest strengths was how many runs we put up in the first inning, and it felt like we were going into the second, third inning already with the game over. This year that wasn't necessarily a strength for us early in games, so we found ourselves playing late in the games close. And I think over the course of the season, it made us better because we played a lot of late tight games. And this weekend we won two games on Sunday that we were down going into the last inning, and we ended up coming back and winning. And I think that was something that this team a year ago wasn't necessarily very good at. So I think it was a year of growth for this team, and when you think of this team kind of weekend by weekend, I don't think I expected this team to end up with a better record than last year. Just because last year it felt so easy to go out there and we were just winning games with basically me sitting on my hands. I didn't really have to do anything last year. We were just winning games. And this year it seemed like every weekend was a grind, and every tournament, it seems like we were grinding to win. And for the boys who still put up that record, I thought was very, very impressive. This team, I think, obviously this entire age is so deep, but I think this team was really deep, and a lot of guys who are up and coming players for this team going forward. And Mac, I want to go ahead and start with you at first. When you look at the core for this team, Parker Els, Lucas Wilburn, Lucas Velchek, Jack Kester now is kind of added to that core. This core is one of the best in the entire Bears, Mac. And how do you see the top half of this team growing into next season?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main question is what's next? And, you see how good they do this year, and they're only going to get better after the winter, after this offseason. So, you're going to see some major improvements from these guys. I think we're going to see more doubles, more triples, more home runs from what we're already seeing. And, that pitching stat's going to get better. So this team, I feel like, only can go up from where they are. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're going to see this team kind of get up next to that Dalton 16U Floyd, or next year there'll be 16U Floyd. The 15 Floyd team, the Dalton team, and the 18 Floyd team, I think have a little bit of a leg up on this 14 Floyd squad. But I think next year you're going to see 14U Floyd be just as good as those teams, if not make another run for the best team in the Bears. But KJ, I want to go ahead and go to you on, you know, for me as a coach, I like to obviously, I'm trying to win every weekend, but I think I'm constantly evaluating the next stars for this team. And we've had some really good players come through the door, and some guys who were here have really taken a step up in work ethic. And I want to focus on two guys specifically that I know you like, KJ, and that have huge ceilings in Joey Burgess and Braden Miller, who I think we've already started to see with Joey, him starting to realize his potential on the top team. And then Braden, we didn't necessarily see it on the top team this year, but he had some big moments on the Bell and Kreitler teams. Where do you see those guys, KJ, and their ceiling and how they fit into the rest of this squad?
Yeah, I think these are another, two superstar bats, potentially going into the next season. And both of them have shown that they're willing to put in the work. Both of them started from the bottom, and typically, a lot of guys on that team, man, they didn't come out good. And as Bears coaches, we want the guys who start on the bottom teams and develop their way through. And so Braden Miller and Joey are both products of the Bears, and we saw with Joey, the way he can just put balls over the fence effortlessly. And Braden Miller, we saw him have a 3-homer weekend, so both these guys have big time power, and I think, you're gonna have to find some spots defensively maybe for both of them. I know Joey can catch a little bit. I know Brandon Miller can play a decent outfield, but I think these two bats are gonna force Robbie to put them in the order and find a spot for them.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it kind of shakes out going into next year. And Bernie, the last thing I'm going to go ahead and throw with you is the little bit of an interesting aspect. Obviously, 15U Floyd dealt with this year, but some guys on this team that are going to be in high school ball to open up the season next year. Lucas Wilburn, Lucas Velchek, Jack Kester, all going to be in high school ball to start the season. And obviously, those are three big pieces for this team. Where do you see, especially, I'm gonna stick on the pitching side. Obviously, Velchek and Wilburn are two big innings eaters for this team. Who do you see, Bernie, really stepping up into that pitching role going into the offseason and filling it at least until Velchek and Wilburn come back?
Yeah, I think you can answer the question of, who's going to be the new ace of that team and the guys who already come in on the back end rotation. But, again, Mason Gage, we already talked about him, but we're talking about a guy who could possibly, fill in, maybe Quinn becomes the ace or maybe even Mason, but Mason could be a top 2 pitcher, going into that second Sunday guy for that 14 Floyd squad next year on the back end. I know Evan Lancaster had some starts, came out of the bullpen some. I'm sure he'll have a massive usage. And even a second team guy, I know he struggled this fall a lot by like his work ethic. Josiah Leaker was affected a little bit by moving back 60 feet, struggling from the zone at times. But again, another guy kind of throws hard. If you can get him honed in a little bit, I think he could be a back end the rotation type guy. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. For me, I'm actually really excited about going into this offseason knowing, okay, Wilburn, Kessler, and Velchek, they're holes that need to be filled. And I think that's going to be a huge motivation tactic for me as I'm going to say, hey, that's 3 lineup spots that are wide open for anybody to come in and take them. You look at guys like Braden Miller, Joey Burgess, who, was a bench guy this fall, maybe take somebody's job in the starting lineup. And then other guys on that Bell squad that, have a lot of potential. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens for this team in the spring. But that's going to do it for this episode of BBN After Dark. KJ, Bernie, Mac, thank you for joining me on Friday for BBN. We're going to go ahead and once again kind of look at some records that our youth teams broke this year. A lot of different single season records got broken for our youth teams. So very excited to go ahead and take a look at that on Friday. But that's going to do it for this episode of the BBN After Dark. And thank you all for listening.